Soros as national security threat. Using Obama's 2014 executive order, it's no surprise that one of the most hated people in the entire world is George Soros. This liberal billionaire has used his massive wealth and resources to essentially control the Democratic Party. Which is why if Hillary Clinton had won the presidential election, she would have been listening to Soros. When you're done imaging that nightmare scenario, it's important to realize that the fight isn't over yet. Hillary might have lost the election, but Soros is still out there, mobilizing and planning more moves that seek to dismantle the Donald Trump presidency. That's why Trump finally had enough and is going to charge Soros as a threat to national security in the United States. Considering that this is the same man that has mobilized and paid protesters to create a tremendous amount of damage, it's been a long time coming for this order. Trump had placed a call to Russia to ask about any and all files that are related to Soros. He was able to do this thanks to the 2014 executive order that was signed by President Obama, entitled Blocking Property of Certain Persons Contributing to the Situation in Ukraine. I, Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, find that the actions and policies of persons that undermine democratic processes and institutions in Ukraine, threaten its peace, security, stability, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and contribute to the misappropriation of its assets, constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States, and I hereby declare a national emergency to deal with that threat. Nearly a month after this order was signed, U.S. diplomatic cables show that Soros did undermine the processes and institutions in Ukraine. Due to Soros's illegal intervention into a peaceful transition of power, mass conflict erupted and an estimated 9,600 men, women, and children lost their lives. Clearly that is interfering in the process. So why didn't President Obama charge Soros as a threat to the United States national security? It's because Soros flooded Obama and Hillary's Democratic Party with about $100 million in donations. You really think that Obama is going to charge someone that has donated that much to their party? Soros began his takeover back in 2004, as he declared it is the central focus of my life and a matter of life and death, to push his influence on the American people and our democracy. While 2004 failed, Soros had turned to 2016 and had become Hillary's highest donor. We know that Hillary listens to people that donate to her, so she would have been listening to Soros the entire time. Now that the Democratic Party has been completely defeated, Soros is doing what he can to go against President Trump, saying democracy is now in crisis. Soros has been active in his fight against Trump, as he was discovered to have been the mastermind behind paying protesters to cause as much damage and destruction as possible. During the election season, there were several Black Lives Matter protests that quickly turned violent. These protesters started riots, went up against the police force, and generally made life difficult for law-abiding citizens. Then came a report that Soros was paying these protesters around $15 an hour to protest, and they would have their expenses paid for. It didn't just stop at the Black Lives Matter protests either. There were several protests against Trump during the election season that turned violent. Again, another report circulated that protesters were getting paid to cause as much destruction as possible. Considering that one of these protests actually shut down a speech that Trump had planned to make, it's safe to say that they were effective at the time. Not to mention that these people were endangering other people around them and creating a lot of problems for the police forces that were assigned to them. It's about time that Trump did something against Soros. This man has been responsible for funding protests that have turned violent in the United States. He has been responsible for attempting to control the Democrats through his donations to the party. This man is a menace to society, and Trump is finally labeling Soros like he should be, a national security threat. Other nations are starting to do something against Soros as well. Hungary became the first nation to come forward and do what they could to bring down Soros. Hungary said that they will use all the tools at its disposal to sweep out various NGOs that are tied to Soros. In other words, his wealth won't be able to influence government positions anymore. Again, Soros has done what he could to help finance and protest against Trump's inauguration. A report came out that showed he was directly tied to over 50 groups that were set to protest the inauguration of Trump. If he is tied to that many groups, then that is a lot of money invested in people just to protest something. Share this article to show that Trump is finally going to label Soros for what he is, and that is a threat to the security of the United States. Trump was able to do this thanks to Obama's executive order back in 2014. Considering all the damage that Soros has done to the United States through his funding of protests, this was a long time coming.